Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Negishi, along with my co host, the associate editor from the sports blog, sports media blog, for announcing it is Ken Fang himself. Ken, thank you very much for joining me once again tonight on this special occasion. This, of course, Labor Day weekend, and I hope you had a very good week so far.
Oh, so far so good, and glad to be on with you. Of course, we're on a holiday weekend,
Yep.
so hopefully we'll have a lot of people. By the way, we have a special guest tonight, Adnan Virk of MLB Network and NHL Network, formerly of ESPN, and also NHL Network. He'll be joining us tonight, and he is our special guest. And we'll also be talking to him not only about his stints and his gigs over at ESPN and WWE, but also his work at NHL and MLB Network. And he has a new book called Cinephile. He just published this summer. We'll talk to Adnan. He's a big movie guy. And if you follow his socials, he'll tell you all about the movies that he's seen. And he's a great movie historian. And we'll talk to him about that. All that coming up when he joins us.
Very excited about the Adnan Virk. I think a lot of people will remember him from his days with ESPN as well. Doing some baseball tonight, and also doing some work also on Sports Center side as well. We're very excited about his career, as well as any advice that he has from people of minority side in breaking into the industry, and how he has persevered over these years since having left ESPN several years back, of course. And obviously with the Labor Day weekend, college football has officially began. As of this week, Friday Thursday, Friday, we've seen the slew of kickoffs, and yesterday was obviously the official week one of the college football. A week ago, we had one in Dublin, Oregon, between Iowa State and Kansas. That was a week zero game, which it didn't really feel right, since that was like the only game that was on television. But now we can officially claim that Labor Day weekend, with the game tonight, of course, with the NFL, still no games, of course, until maybe in about a week or so. Hopefully we'll get to that in a little bit. But Ken, why don't you introduce us to our special guest tonight?
Yes, it's great to have him on. We haven't had a guest on in a while, but he's a man who is multifaceted, who does a lot of things. Not only has he been on with NHL and MLB Network, but he's also now an author of the book Cinephile, and we'll be going to be not only be talking about MLB, which is a very exciting era right now, especially a lot of things going on. But we'll also talk to him about some movies and maybe a little bit WWE as we go along. Clash in Paris just finished and had some very interesting finishes there. We'll talk to him. Adnan Virk joins us. Adnan, great to have you on with us today.
Of course, guys. Great to see you both. Which one of you is Fang's Bites, and who's the other one? Get
that's me. Fang's Bites over here. This is
Ken. Okay,
and I'm Stephen Negishi, the Bears fan, Stephen on Twitter.
All right, so we'll get the Bears talk going early enough. By the way, my brother's a Bears fan, Stephen, and I'm an Eagles fan. So I was thrilled when Micah Parsons got traded. I said, "Oh my God, thank God!" Twice a year now, I vote for Micah Parsons. Like, oh, my poor brother's a Bears fan. Now it's the deal with him now going to the Packers. But
we'll figure it
out. Great to see you both. Thanks for letting me on. This is gonna be a blast. I look forward to it.
Looking forward to it, Adnan, and I'm telling you, I think one day when I went to ESPN, we somehow our cross paths, you walked by me, but I was taking a tour. I was taking a media tour, but you were so busy. You were doing something for ESPN Radio, so I wasn't going to stop you. And I said and I just happened to say, oh, by the way, I happened to pass Adnan Virk in the hall.
Yeah.
Why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you?
Yes. This rings a bell now, Ken. I remember because you're right. I take it personally if someone mentions they saw him but didn't stop. You got to stop. I'm a great stop and chat kind of guy. I would have given you 30 of my best seconds. It would have been late for the show. It would have been fun. We would have had that memory together. I do remember you sending that.
You had blinders on and you were in the middle of heading off, and I said I wasn't going to stop you, but you looked like something. You were busy, so I said, I've always wanted to talk to you, but I said, you know what, today's not that day, so I just figured I'll just let you go. So
I'm glad today is that day. Asian excellence in full effect. Obviously, you've done a great job your whole career, not only documenting and broadcast, but specifically for Asian Americans. My buddy Mike Yam, Anish Shroff, so many others out there.
Yes.
So props to you as well. I appreciate it.
We appreciate that, and we always being on the AA team, which stands for the Asian team. So we very, very much appreciate it, Adnan, and also someone who has lived in Canada. You're a Canadian as well, so and I was went back to Canada just last year just to visit Montreal to say hello and go to my old stomping ground. So great to we'll talk about all that. So
I was about to say I love Montreal. How long did you live in Canada for?
I lived there for a couple of years. My dad was teaching at Sir George Williams University, which has changed its name, but it was a lot of fun, and just walking around and saying, "Oh my God, that's where I used to go. Oh, that's where the Bank of Canada is. Okay, that's where so all these great places." So it was a lot of fun. So,
but you guys were in Montreal for 2 years.
Yes.
Oh man, that's great. I was about to say, like, if you're in one of Toronto, Montreal, or Vancouver, you're doing something right. I mean, that's the best that Canada has to offer. So I'm glad you're there.
Very true. Very true. And then we're excited to have you on. And of course, as mentioned, MLB Network, NHL Network, done work for ESPN, started in Canada. But just briefly, just give the synopsis of, how you got to America and how things, you came here from, I think it was TSN, or was it radio with TSN?
Yeah, so I went to school for radio and television arts. It was then called Ryerson University. It's now Toronto Metropolitan University, TMU. And while I was there, I interned at TSN in my second year of college, which was great. And then I was able to intern there for 8 months. And I got a part-time job, graduated, was working there full-time. But I still had that on-air itch. And then I left to go to do a show called Bollywood Boulevard, which was my big break at Omni Television, which was basically like a multicultural channel, PBS-type channel. Mm-hmm. I was doing a show called Bollywood Boulevard. I did Omniculture from there. As so happens, as you guys know, it's with some random bit of fate, you could call it. But Nick Ciccione was the floor director, a great guy. I'm always indebted to Nick. And he just said to me, "What's your deal?" Every time I see you watching sports and you're here working at Omni, I said, "God, I wanted to be a sportscaster. I was working at TSN behind the scenes, but I haven't been able to land a job." He said, "My cousin, Anthony Ciccione, is starting a 24/7 sports network. It's like Headline Sports is the name of it. It's like headline news, but for sports." I said, "Oh my God, it's amazing." So Anthony called me, said, "I like your stuff. I think it's okay, a little raw, but Nick raves about you, so let's keep in touch." And a few months later, Anthony called me again because I think you've improved. Let's see more of your stuff. So I was working at the Score, and I was having a blast there, 24/7 sports channel. Again, we were the first channel, I believe, in North America with a sports ticker. Now the ticker is omnipresent. The Score was the first one at that time, Headline Sports. And there, Anthony and Dave Rutherford, Dave was our news director, both instrumental in my career. They both said, "You should try to get to the States." And I said, "Are you trying to fire me? Like, what's going on here?" They said, "No, we just think some of your talent, young guy, not married, like, do it now while you can." And so Dave gave me Robert Smith's agent. I ended up working with Robert Smith at ESPN, by the way. I told him the story. Of course, we worked together on college football. Robert Smith's agent turned me down, but he said, "Try this agent." Second agent said no, but the third agent said, "I'm interested in your work. Mark Turner, why don't you come on down to New York? We'll have a meeting." So I met Mark. He was a great guy. He said, "Here's how it works. I get 10% if I get you a job. If I don't get your job, I get nothing." I said, "Great." And that was let's say October 2008. I first interviewed at ESPN with Lori Orlando, who was, again, instrumental in my career. She gave me my big break, but not right away. I waited for months and months. And in that time, guys started becoming good friends of mine. Max Baradas got hired. Steve Weissman got hired. Deuces Rogers got hired. But eventually my number got called, and David Amber was indispensable. Of course, a dear friend, was at ESPN for 8 years now. He's on Hockey in Canada. David and I were friends from my time at TSN. He was a reporter. I was behind the scenes working as a production assistant. But Dave was amazing. He was like, "All right, here's the people you're going to talk to at ESPN." He gave me like a crib sheet for all the people, and then I got the job. And when Mark Gross called me, he said, "The good news is you got the job. The bad news is sometimes the visa can take a while." And I said, "Well, how long?" He goes, "It could be months. So you can't tell you when you got the job." I said, "Oh my God." He goes, "But it might be really quick." So I felt weird. And thankfully, it took like 4 days. I think Grossi called me late February, and 4 days later, I got the job. And then I moved down May of 2010 and began my journey in the States. So 15 years down in America, 9 years at ESPN, 6 with the MLB Network and NHL Network. And I couldn't be more fortunate, Ken. It's been a great ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you, very happy that you're with MLB Network and NHL Network, doing all the studio work that you do. And, of course, you're with two legal networks, so access is great. But uh, uh, imagine that you're going from ESPN, the worldwide leader, and then you go. Of course, there's a little brief stop at WWE, but then you get over to MLB and NHL Network. Tell us what it's like to be different as a rights holder, to be now as part of a legal network where basically you can basically run anything you want. If you're in the middle of saying, "Hey, we're on MLB tonight now, but hey, we got a no hitter that's going on in Milwaukee, but we're showing highlights." You can do that. You don't have to worry about moving. Of course, you don't have to worry about getting the rights. You have the rights, so you don't have to worry about what is it like to be a part of that that network that can do that.
Yeah, 100%. That is the best part of it. By the way, you mentioned WWE earlier. We won't be able to do this unless Steven and I go on a really wild tangent, but I just texted you the WWE chapter from my book, Cinephile. It's a bonus chapter. So once Steven gets rolling here, you're gonna multitask and start reading that chapter, so you'll have a little bit of WWE background. You can start reading it right now while I talk. Steven will listen to my answer. We'll go from there. But yes, the access is fantastic. You're right. MLB Network. We get to do MLB Tonight, which is our Emmy Award-winning show. As you can see over my right shoulder, look at that Emmy Award right there. Matter of fact, look at the gold box. Those are the nominations. But so the 3 plaques. I'm a 3-time nominee at MLB Network, MLB Tonight, and then that's the one we won 2 years ago. It's been such a blessing, Kenny. I mean, all the years I worked at ESPN for 9 years, and I'm always grateful to ESPN. Even though I got fired, even though it was a bad ending, nobody can take away those 9 years. And those 4 letters, as you know, that helps you get a job at the next place, right? It's like being on a hit sitcom. It's like saying I was on Friends. Well, if you're on Friends, clearly that's going to help Matt LeBlanc get Joey. That's going to help Matthew Perry get Studio 60, whatever the next show it is. So for me, ESPN gets me DAZN. ESPN gets me WWE. ESPN gets me MLB Network, NHL Network. So I'm always grateful for that journey. And you're right. With MLB Tonight, there's no restrictions. There's no embargoes. Like I go to work, man, and I get paid to watch baseball. It is ridiculous how fortunate I am. Today, I'm sitting there watching Jays Brewers. Like I'm locked in. It's great. It's just good living. It's 75 and sunny outside. I run around with my boys for a little bit, and then I play baseball with my kids in the backyard, and then I get to watch baseball. It is a dream job. It's a big ticket. And one of the great things about MLB Network and NHL Network, a lot of former ESPN people there. And I realized it very quickly. A lot of producers, a lot of coordinating producers. When MLB Network was founded in 2009, what happened is people at ESPN who were story editors or production assistants, they're like, oh, wait, I can go to this new network and get an instant promotion. And a lot of these guys were from the New York, New Jersey area. So a lot of MLB Network and NHL Network actually has the DNA of ESPN. So I'm working with really smart people that are at the top of the food chain, but left ESPN for one reason or another. And you know this. I have all these friends who have been so successful. The Ryan Russillos, the Max Bredoses, the Steve Weissmans, the Deuces Rogers, the Mike Yams. A lot of us were ESPN guys that went elsewhere, but you take that talent with you and you have so many great lessons that you learn from it. So I'm really fortunate because MLB Network to me is like the baseball version of ESPN. Like we have all that talent at our disposal. And it's been a great year for baseball, man. Attendance is going to be 70 million again. Ratings up 10%. Virtually all the networks. Sunday Night Baseball is up. Our ratings are up by 30% for our games at MLB Network. It helps because the major teams are going to be the playoffs. Yankees, Mets, Cubs, Dodgers, of course. Dodgers-Padres is a great rivalry. You've got the Tigers, which has a great fan base, which is a first-place team and trying to win their first World Series since 1984. So there's great stories all over the place, and hopefully the Blue Jays can keep things rolling as well for all my people north of the border.
Adnan, ESPN and the NFL Network recently reached an agreement, and obviously, ESPN will, have a stake in the NFL Network and the Red Zone channel. Maybe they might sprout into doing college as well. And there was also, I believe, an article where, ESPN people, your former workplace, there were some people over there were somewhat concerned about maybe the NFL, network or, Commissioner Roger Goodell in this case, kind of like overreaching when it comes to, the content that they're, eventually going to put out. People like Adam Schefter. You also have Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network. You have basically two big insiders that are used to competing against one another. As somebody who worked there and now you work for, a league-owned network, like Ken said, How do you feel about the proposed marriage between NFL Network and the ESPN? And do you have any sort of advice on how you can, not necessarily circumvent, but kind of like work around, without, having your, content being, overlooked by, the overlords from the NFL?
Excellent long question, Stephen. Kenny is already 3 pages into this WWE chapter, and it's 20 pages. So
I'm reading it right now.
I know. I can see it. Like, this is fantastic multitasking. You're going to love that chapter. Keep flying through it. The Vince McMahon stories you're going to love. Yeah, I think I was caught by surprise, like everybody, Stephen. I was like, wow, okay, so ESPN's really embedded with the NFL, even more so than they've ever been. And, when I was there, we all knew that football drives sports in America. There's nothing bigger than the NFL. College football, which I was so lucky to work on, I think in many ways is number 2. NBA 3, baseball 4. Obviously, baseball's higher in certain markets, Boston, St. Louis, etc. But NFL is the engine that drives everything. And you can see the numbers spike whenever I was doing SportsCenter or Outside the Lines or filling in for Keith Olbermann, whatever the show was. If we're talking football, people are going to listen and pay attention. So it's no secret for years, and clearly they've done a good job of repairing their relationship with the NFL. And I think it only makes sense. If you're ESPN and you want to be the biggest kids on the block, you have to have football content no matter what. They're going to have a Super Bowl on ABC. There's no bigger fan of Joe Buck than me. I was thrilled when they got Joe Buck. I had him on my podcast, Cinephile. I told him what a huge fan I am. I text him on occasion. He surprisingly is not blocked. He responds to my texts. So I'm a big fan of ESPN's football coverage. I mean, I love Joe Buck. I think him and Aikman are great together. I love Laura Rutledge. She's a friend of mine. She does an awesome job on NFL Live. Happy NFL Live, by the way. I'm not happy they beat us, but they did win the Emmy for Best Studio Show. And I'm really happy for Laura. She does a sensational job. Dan Orlovsky's a great guy. We have the same agent. Ryan Clark is really good. Like they've got really strong talent for NFL roster. Adam Schefter's a great guy. Schefter, years ago, before I wrote my book, actually, I asked Schefter about his book. And I remember his response was, I didn't make any money off it, which I thought was a funny line to say. Like, it's a very open-ended question. Like, what is it like? He was like, it's a tough business to crack. But Schefter's a really smart guy, works his butt off. He's so talented. So I love NFL, the NFL roster at ESPN. I just feel like they get stronger now. You mentioned the Ian Rappaports and Andrew Brandt obviously does a phenomenal job. Good Morning Football. My dear friend Mark Grillo was one of the producers on Good Morning Football for years. He just left now, but I have great respect for NFL Network and the caliber of their talent. So I think really it's a business arrangement that makes sense for both sides. The NFL is in bed with the biggest and the baddest in ESPN, and ESPN now has a piece of the biggest sport in the country, the NFL. And this can only help ESPN's coverage moving forward. I'm sure that this will help in terms of them renegotiating, getting more Super Bowls, getting more rights, NFL Red Zone, all that kind of stuff. It feels like a huge win-win for both. Because I'll tell you this, there's no place else like ESPN that can maximize having all these different channels. Now having WWE in the mix. Like, their Super Bowl is going to be ridiculous because they can promote it on their morning show, on their radio show, on Get Up, on every single platform. And that's really what nobody can really match with ESPN. They've got their tentacles all over the place that can spread further than anybody else.
Very true. And one thing also in regards to baseball, of course, ESPN is ending its partnership with Sunday Night Baseball. But according to all the reports that we're hearing, and the fact is they're probably going to still stay with baseball, maybe getting another night, also perhaps getting local rights as well. What is it about ESPN with its tentacles that seemingly every league has to have a relationship with?
Yeah, ultimately, as I said, ESPN is a name brand unto itself. Like, everyone knows those 4 letters. And I do think it hurts a sport if you're not associated with ESPN. Even if you want to argue ESPN is not what it once was, if you look at, the subscribers have gone down over the years. I think it's impacted everybody within cable television. It's not only ESPN. People look at ESPN as the headline because of the fact they're such a monolithic corporation, but every network, MLB network, NHL network, all of us have been hurt by the downgrade of cable and the fact so many people have been cord cutters. But with MLB network, we've got the app now. I think that's growing as well. I think with ESPN, obviously, you've seen how bullish they are with regards to ESPN Plus. Now, this new Watch ESPN, which is going to be, I think, $29.99 as a standalone just to watch. So I think ultimately what drives everything is content. Content is king. So the more stuff you have, the better chance you're going to have people buying it. Simple as that, right? So, it's one thing to try to sell people on some random hockey game or an EPL game, but if you've got a big baseball game, if you've got NFL games, if you've got, the more stuff you have, the more reason people are going to pay that $29.95. And again, I'm an old geezer. I'm 47. I still have DirecTV. I love satellite. I flip channels all the time. It's great. But I recognize I'm in a dwindling minority. People 45 and under are not watching TV that way. They're sharing accounts, all the rest of it. So I think ESPN's smart to realize every single thing we can have to make ourselves more attractive is important. Baseball is still a major sport in this country, even if it's not as popular in some ways on a national level. People still love their local teams. Go to San Diego right now. They're second in attendance in all of baseball. 44,000 people are going to watch Padres games. So you can argue baseball on national level perhaps doesn't have the reach it once did. But in local markets, oftentimes the biggest ticket in town, the highest draw all summer, is the sports team. Like if you go to Minnesota, like the Twins games rate. If you go to Detroit, the Tigers games rate. Wherever you may be, not to mention the big teams, Cubs, Yankees, Dodgers, etc. So I think ESPN realized, okay, national level, maybe it's not working for us as well. Netflix obviously going to swap the home run derby, do a great job. I think NBC is going to do an awesome job on Sunday Night Baseball. And also they've got Peacock in the mix as well. But ESPN goes, hey, local markets, MLB TV, that could be a cash cow. Smart move for them.
Exactly. Steven?
So you mentioned about the Watch ESPN app, etc. Ken and I have discussed in detail about so many streaming services. There's just not enough to go around from one for an individual or a family these days. I know you said content is king, but as somebody who works in the media side of it, do you feel like the consumers, the viewers, the fans are kind of like getting hosed with so many multiple streaming platforms? With Netflix now has a home run derby starting next year. You have NFL, multiple games on Christmas now on Netflix, and then you have the YouTube TV that's getting the Brazil games week 1, etc. There's so many of them. There's just not enough, amount of money to go around. Do you feel like, as somebody who worked on that other side of the media, do you feel like fans need to just suck it up, as somebody once said, or do you feel like there's just too many and that the consumers are eventually, being, I don't want to say hosed, but do you feel kind of that way?
Listen, I'm always pro fans. I would never tell them to just suck it up. I totally respect the fact, as a father of 4, how expensive things are in today's world. And I realize with an addiction to both sports and movies, how expensive my own hobbies are. So I would never just tell people to deal with it. I do think at times it can be frustrating how expensive things can be. And that's one of the reasons why I still have cable. Like, you get to the point where you say, okay, if I'm paying X amount of dollars for all these streaming services, would it not be cheaper just to have cable? Probably not there at that point just yet, but I bundle things up. And again, I'm lucky enough. I make a good salary. My accountant's smart enough to write it off. I just get to have all these sports at my disposal. The U.S. Open, I'm so lucky. DirecTV. I go to the U.S. Open tennis mix channel. I'm watching 4 different tennis matches at the same time. Baseball, the extra innings package. I can watch any baseball game whenever I want. I've got the channel where there's 4 different games, 8 different games. So for me, the more the merrier. And I think for me, it's important. It's my job. But I totally respect the fact that the average person up there goes, hang on a second. The ESPN standalone is $29.99. If all of a sudden this chapter is this much, this, streaming service costs this much, I can totally see the frustration from each person and where that would stem from. And I do think there becomes a point where companies have to be careful and say, okay, some people are going to pay for cable and your conventional format, and then some are going to pay for the streamer, but they're not going to do both. And you can't alienate them. Like, you can't have people saying, well, this is streaming only, or this is cable exclusively. Like, I think if you're paying for it, you should get the goods. And that's why I think, by the way, the WWE aspect I really like for this reason. I have ESPN, of course, on my cable package. With ESPN making this deal with WWE, I don't have to pay extra. I'm still going to get all the WWE action, which is now awesome. It's a bonus and incentive for me to stay with ESPN. Props to the great Nick Khan, the president of WWE, my friend and former agent. It would be different if they said, okay, now that ESPN has WWE, you've got to pay X amount of dollars. No. If you have ESPN, you're good. Then you add WWE. Awesome. And if you don't have it, okay, here's how much you have to pay moving forward. It's still a pretty good deal overall.
You mentioned Nick Khan, of course, helping to run WWE. And the fact is, a former agent as well. What is it about him that makes anytime he talks about sports media, we as special awful announcing still have to quote him, but he also seems to be connected, and he even predicted what happened with the NBA. He knew. He said everything that happened with the NBA last year. He knew and saw right out of the gate. What is it about him that has this vision?
Well, you think of that great movie, Donnie Brasco, one of my favorites. My favorite actor, of course, Al Pacino. And when he's talking with Johnny Depp about being a made guy and a connected guy, I think Nick's a made man, but he's also a connected guy. Like Nick knows where everything's going, and his brain is working at a different frequency than everybody else. And I think that's really the key with really talented, ambitious people, Ken, is they can see the play developing 3 plays for everybody else, right? What made Gretzky so special? It was the fact that his anticipation was incredible. And that's what made him a great hockey player. He wasn't the strongest, he wasn't the fastest, but that anticipation. And same thing with Nick. He's seeing things 5 plays to everybody else, and that's how you win the game. That's how you be smart at it. And you're right. I always listen to him on Bill Simmons on that podcast, the BS podcast, and Bill gets him going talking sports media. And I'm writing it down, man. I'm like, no, Nick knows exactly what's happening. He's got the pulse on everything. He's connected with all these major people. And think about it, he made deals with the biggest and the brightest, whether it's Jimmy Pitaro or Eric Shanks or Sean McManus. Like, Nick knows the heads of all the people working in television and knows them on a good level and did great work for them, and they did great work for him. So it's a symbiotic relationship, and he's an unbelievable agent. He was always in my corner, and he's very self-effacing and funny and self-deprecating, but he's got great presence to him and great charm. And like I said, he's smart as a whip. One of my favorite stories about Nick is when I first met him. He reached out to me through my buddy Mike Salk. We were doing radio together, and at the time I said, Nick, I have an agent. Thank you for your interest. But like within 2 minutes of talking to this guy, you realize you want to at least have a conversation with him because he clearly knows everything happening. The verbiage he was using, CPs at ESPN are doing this, coordinating producers. They're looking at this product. Here's what I know people are saying about you. So I said, clearly he's a very bright guy. So I met him when I was in Los Angeles, when I was filling in Sports Center LA with Neil Everett. And I met him and Andy Elkin at a table. And I walked in, and I said, oh my God, they're both wearing like terrific suits and they look so sharply dressed. And I'm wearing a t-shirt, flip-flops, and shorts. And I said, I'm so sorry. I'm coming from Bristol, Connecticut. It's middle of February, it's 70 and sunny. Like, I can't wait to put t-shirt and shorts on. And Nick said, without missing a beat, he said, it's okay. Anybody that sees us having lunch knows you're the most important person at this table. just by virtue of how you're dressed. Because clearly, if you can show up wearing a Hawaiian shirt, we're trying to get your business. Great line by Nick.
We're speaking with Adnan Virk, host of on MLB Network and NHL Network, and talking to him about a bunch of stuff. And boy, I'm loving it here. I knew that once I booked you, Adnan, this is going to be a lot of fun.
I love the fact you're reading the WWE chapter and you text me back. Love this. Make sure when Steven gets going again, just scroll ahead to the Vince McMahon stuff. You're going to love it.
I did. It's amazing stuff. It is truly amazing. I'm a very fast. I can pretty much scan a lot of stuff, and man, that was I couldn't.
Steven, 20 pages he digested in 3 minutes. That is incredible.
Well, Ken loves his WWE for
Right.
all I know, for a lot of wrestling. He does tweet it from time to time, and obviously his work with Awful Announcing. There's a couple of other guys who loves covering wrestling, Ben Axelrod among others.
Oh yeah.
They do love talking about wrestling and the coverage, for better, for worse, and all of that. You had setbacks, of course, with ESPN. Unfortunate situation. You were very candid about it. What do you remember that day about? Did you kind of like had an inkling that this was coming to an end? And then how did you manage to kind of bounce back? Because I know you also had a very, very short stint with WWE, unfortunately, which, was another small, kind of step back in your career. But how did you manage to bounce back from those experiences? And, how do you manage to look back on those experiences?
Well, I think it was Rocky Balboa, the philosopher, Sylvester Stallone, said, tough times don't last, tough people do. So certainly bad things are going to happen to you. You're going to battle through adversity. Certainly ESPN, as I've said, I worked there 8 years and 9 months, and I never dreamt I'd ever work at ESPN. It changed my life. It changed my career. And so I don't let a negative and very painful final 72 hours distort my entire perception of the company. While I was there, I had great pride in the work that I did, being able to host SportsCenter. Like I said, Keith Olbermann's my hero. I get to fill in for Keith so many times, working on college football, working on baseball tonight. Baseball's always been my favorite sport. I couldn't believe the fact I was so lucky to work with all those great analysts, be friends now with the likes of Aaron Boone and Alex Cora and David Ross and Eduardo Perez. Obviously, Carl Ravitch welcomed me so kindly, and there's great producers behind the scenes. So, when I think of the ESPN tenure, I really focus on all the positives, and I still keep in touch with so many of the guys there. And I always root for them. People say to me, you got fired by ESPN, negativity, animosity. I said, no, ESPN doing well is good for everyone in sports, period. And I just have so many friends there. So I would never want to, whenever I see layoffs or, anything like that, I get worried because, those are my friends there more than anything. I don't want to see any harm or damage come to ESPN. As far as being let go, I didn't have an inkling. I knew I was in some trouble once I got called into HR, but I didn't think I'd be fired until I talked to Nick. And then Nick was like, it's 50-50. I'm like, really? I'm like, oh my God. I was genuinely surprised because at least my thought on it, Stephen, is that, I'd never been dinged with anything before. I think when you work at a company, you assume a ledger of credits and negatives. And so in terms of positives, I'd done all these things. I worked 27 days in a row. I called in sick 3 times in 9 years, affable to all, hardworking. I put up a good resume. And so negatives, I'm like, okay, this is a negative. Clearly, I shared some information that I shouldn't have. That's on me. I should know better. I'm expecting a 1-week suspension and we move on. So once it was like potential termination, you almost start to get a list. I mean, Ken could call it up. Look at all the ESPN personalities who've been suspended but not fired. People that I'm quite fond of. Neil Everett, Michelle Beadle, Bill Simmons, very talented people. They don't get fired right away. You normally get suspended. It's a stern talking to, we'll give you a second chance. So in my view, I had never been suspended. I had never run afoul of anything at ESPN. So I thought, okay, well, this is the first time. Unless you're doing something wrong, you got to be doing something right. So, okay, I'll take the suspension 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever it may be. So once Nick was like, might go the other way, I'm like, wow, I was genuinely surprised. But at least, again, thank God he's such a smart agent, such a smart guy. At least he prepared me a little bit. So when I went to the HR office that morning and they delivered the boom, at least I had an inkling, because I would not have thought on my own I would get fired. If I'd been on my own, I would have been shocked. Thankfully, Nick had said to me, he's like, it's 50-50. So be prepared either way. I'm like, okay. So when it happened, you just take it. They give you some information on the way out. You're not really listening at that point. You're just trying to process it. I went home, told my wife, she was in shock. It's a very tough conversation, obviously, to tell my kids. I've got 4 boys. At the time, my little guy was only 3 months. I did tell he's now 17, so 11-year-old. And, obviously he'd been in Connecticut his whole life. So that's tough to tell him, hey, we're going to change schools. We're changing lives. But you try to embrace the unpredictability, right? It's definitely a painful experience. It's not one that I wish on any of my worst enemies. It's not one that I expect to relive anytime soon. I hope to not get fired again. But you battle through it. And as you said, I don't know what's more shocking, the fact that I got fired by ESPN after putting together what I thought was a pretty good tenure, or the fact that I bounced back so quickly. I mean, I got fired February 1st. The news was published by Andrew Marcy on February 3rd, which was Sunday. I got fired on the Friday. I think a week later, Nick said to me, I think everything's going to be okay. And then I talked to John Skipper and Jamie Horowitz, I think a week after that. So I feel like after 3 weeks after being fired, I felt pretty good I was going to get another job. And it was officially done 6 weeks. March 18th was my first job at MLB Network /DAZN. So I'm incredibly fortunate. I mean, I cannot tell you how lucky I am. The amount of people I know who have lost their jobs, I had 1 week of agita and concern. 1 week. And after 2 weeks, I felt good. After 3 weeks, I'm like, well, I've got the job. Now it's just a matter of working things out. Like, that's crazy. That doesn't happen. So, I'm so lucky to Jamie and to John for giving me a second chance. Of course, to Nick and my agent, Matt Olson at CA, those guys being out for me. So that was probably more than anything. I just feel gratitude. And again, we got the Emmys behind me here. We've had a great run at MLB Network. Things have really worked out. They say everyone gets a second chance. That not always is the case, but I've gotten the second chance, and I'm so grateful to God I've been able to make the most of it.
How important, though, and you talked about Nick Khan again, how important is an agent telling you the truth?
Oh, yeah.
Telling what you want to hear. A lot of agents will tell their clients what they want to hear without telling them the truth, and then then they're shocked.
Yeah.
You got the truth from Nick Khan.
Yeah.
It may happen. Just preparing you.
Yeah.
How important was that so you were ready?
By the way, he also had a great line, Kenny. He said, if they fire you, if it goes that way, don't say you'll hear from my lawyer. That's only what people say in the movies. So I did not say that to the HR guy and to Norby Williamson, who delivered the boom on the speakerphone. But no, you're right. It's vital, right? Because if he had said to me, don't worry, you're going to be fine, and I went there and I got fired, I'm like, what? Like, I would have lost. I have no idea how I would have reacted, right? Remember the great movie Up in the Air with George Clooney? He literally has to fire people for a living. And they've got these great montages. People start crying. People start yelling. People start screaming. I don't even know what emotions I would have gone through. I think I just would have been incredulous. I would have been like, are you kidding me? Do you know what people have done to this company? Look at what this guy did. I know what I would have started naming names like McCarthyism. Look what this guy did. That guy did this. That guy I did one thing. Okay. Sorry. My bad. Okay. It won't happen again. Like, are you kidding? Like, I think I would have lost my mind. So thank God Nick was there to at least warn me, because you're right. When the sledgehammer hits and you don't know it's coming, I think it's 10 times worse. No question about it. And then you can say to yourself, okay, listen, take a deep breath. Because then I was worried. I said, maybe I'm blackballed forever. You get fired by ESPN, you might not work again. And
Right.
Nick and Matt both said, listen, that's not going to happen. They said, listen, if you get fired, and immediately the story's going to come out what happened, right? Everyone's going to know. I said, no, of course. So he said, if it's something racially charged, if it's something with women, if it's sexual harassment, if it's theft, like those are major issues which are tough to bounce back from. In this instance, they're going to go, what happened? He said something to Ben Coot awful announcing off the record and it got published. That's it. Like that, like they're going to go, okay, like that happens. That shouldn't happen. You should keep your mouth shut, but that does happen. Broadcasters do talk to reporters. They do share things sometimes off the record. He should have known better. That's it. And the next job is going to say, hey, just to be clear, keep your mouth shut, right? When it comes to company information. Yep, got it. Lesson learned. I've lost my career and my vocation. I promise it will not happen again. And that's it. Like I remember talking to Oberman, and Keith gave good advice. He said, if you're an alcoholic and you lost your job for drinking, the next job they put a proviso in the contract, hey, you can't drink again. If you have a sip of alcohol, you're fired, terminated. See ya, right? And I said, yeah. So again, you have to have an agent that understands the world that is around you. And Nick said, you're not going to get blackballed. You're going to bounce back. You're going to get another job. I promise you. No problem. He goes, all that matters is your reputation, right? They're going to call and go, what's this guy like? They're going to ask producers, directors, co-hosts, whoever, producers, management, and they're all going to go, he's a good guy. It's an unfortunate situation. And that's what happened. I don't, I probably shouldn't say the people, but there were management figures at ESPN who put in a word for me at MLB Network, at DAZN. When they were asked off the record what happened, they basically said their version of, Adnan's a good guy. You should hire him. It's unfortunate, but we do like him. And I've seen those people since then and thank them. They're like, oh, of course. Like, it's amazing how much people will pay it forward for you. When you're down in the dumps, people really do rally around you if you're a good person, if you treat them well. So I was fortunate in that respect, very much so.
Well, I will ask you now about the chapter that you just sent me, which is absolutely fantastic, by the way.
Thanks.
I have heard, and of course, through the grapevine, how Vince McMahon can be and overbearing and also yelling. And Michael Cole has told this story quite a bit about how Vince is in his ear. Yeah. What was it like just to have that guy in your ear constantly criticizing or just critiquing your performance as a play-by-play guy for WWE Raw? You think it's going to be your dream job. Hey, this is something I get to do. I'm a big fan of wrestling. But then it goes from he's talking constantly in your ear to nothing. What is that like?
Yeah, it's a great question. And by the way, that is the perfect question always. Both of you guys should know that. John Sawatsky, who used to teach us interviewing at ESPN, said the best question you can always ask is, what was it like? Because it'll always get people talking, right? Open, lean, neutral. So great question. Vince is a guy who's a fascinating presence. As I wrote my book, and again, you can go buy my books Cinephile, wherever books are sold. The WWE chapter is a bonus. You can get on the Mango website. But Vince is a guy who's got great presence. I didn't meet him before I got hired. Michael Cole is in charge of the hiring process for Honored Talent. He's a great guy. He was a big fan of my work, liked my work from ESPN and MLB Network. Cole's a huge Mets fan. Of course, Nick Khan gave his vote of confidence, said, yep, Adnan's a great guy, works hard, he'll do a good job. So I was really fortunate they gave me the chance. Basically, Vince saw my tape and he liked it. And they basically said, we think he's good. And he's like, okay, let's go for it. So I didn't meet Vince before. I'm doing my first episode of Raw, which, as you know, is a big episode right after WrestleMania. That's a big Raw.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear his voice till like 10:20. That's when he just got my ear and he just said, please remind them this is a championship match. And I'm like, okay, yep, got it. Thank you. Appreciate that. And after I just left, and Cole said, listen, I'm going to call you later in the week. We're going to go through some stuff. I'm like, okay. And he gave me a bunch of critiques and advice, but the first episode was okay. Like, I had fun. Corey Graves and Barnes Saxon are unbelievably talented. I'm indebted to those guys forever. They're such huge talents. And they knew, like, listen, this guy's never called wrestling in his life at any level. He's done baseball, college football, hockey, NFL. Like, he's not done wrestling. You can be a fan, but it's another thing to call a snap suplex on the fly in front of 5 million people watching in USA. So both those guys were awesome and so supportive. And Kevin Dunn's great, the producer, and the whole production crew. But the second episode was tough because now Vince was talking to me. First episode, nothing. Second episode, right out of the gate, I said, welcome to this episode of Raw. We've got lots of great storylines. And right in my ear, don't say storylines. It's not a goddamn Broadway show. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. And it was just constant. And I thought, I couldn't have imagined ESPN if John Skipper was in my ear barking every show I was doing. Right? I couldn't imagine if Mark Kayafa and Bill Morningstar, my bosses at MLB Network, were barking. Ken Miller on Amazon while I'm doing a hockey show is telling me, you suck. This is not good. Like, it is unnerving for anybody. You have to have thick skin. And I do believe I have that. Like, I'm sure my friends and family would tell you how sensitive I am. And I think most honored people are sensitive to a point. But I can take criticism. Ergo, the fact I did that show and I checked my mention, and you're just getting just annihilated by every single person. You suck. Right. Go kill yourself. Go crawl back or whatever rock you came from. So you have to have thick skin and just try to have a sense of humor about it. Say, I'm just going to do my best. We'll get through it. And then I met Vince after the second episode, and seeing him, I'm like, man, just immaculately attired, right? Resplendent suit, obviously hulking physique. It kind of gives that half smile. How are you? I'm like, yeah. And Cole had said to me, he goes, don't nod and smile. He doesn't like that. I'm like, okay. He doesn't like when people do that. I'm like, all right. But he goes, but make notes. I'm like, okay. So I had the pen and paper. It's like, don't nod, but make eye contact and write. He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, fair enough. And so Vince just started to give like a series of critiques. Don't say storylines. Don't do this. If you don't know a move, don't lie. Just let those guys do it. Byron can do the play-by-play. He's the baby face. Corey's the heel. You're there to sell the plays. He said to me, he goes, you remember Johnny Carson? And I'm like, a little before my time, but yeah, I mean, I'm more of a Letterman guy. But yeah, I know who Johnny Carson is. And he's like, Johnny always put him over. And I've never heard that expression so much. And I haven't heard it since then. When I was at WWE for 7 weeks, I've never heard more people in my life say, put him over, put him over, put him over. And after about the 10th time, I go, what the hell does that mean? Oh, it means give the guy props, give him some love. I'm like, got it. So he's like, Johnny would always make the guest good, right? He'd put him over. Same thing with you. You're putting over Corey. You're putting over Byron. You're putting over Drew McIntyre. I'm like, okay, so you want me just to fluff these guys up, right? Gas them up, make them look good. I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can be a cheerleader. I can be enthusiastic. And Vince was telling me, like on certain plays, give it a ooh, give it a oh. And I would do that. I remember I'd see tweets after like, why is this guy grunting? And I'm like, you have no idea. Vince McMahon's telling me what to do. I'm going to do what Vince McMahon tells you to do. It's his toy shop. It's his company. So he gave me, let's say, 20 things that he critiqued. At the end, he goes, but you're doing a good job. You're doing really well. And I'm like, it doesn't sound like it. You just told me 20 things. I'm not like, geez, like I would imagine me on a good day. And I said to Cole, I go, I don't know if this was the right decision. And Cole goes, listen, I know you're hard on yourself. It's a tough job, but you don't want to get fired. You don't want to get embarrassed. It'll make me look bad, make Nick look bad. Like, let's just get through this. We can do it. And week 3, Cole, like I remember I felt like that week I was telling my wife, I go, man, I'm feeling the pressure. Like this is a big week now. Only 2 weeks in, I feel like I'm fighting for my job. And Cole was so funny. He's telling me, he's like, big energy, like right out of the gate, like big time energy. So I'm like screaming. And by the way, this is the Terror Dome where there are no fans. So any excitement I'm generating is, self-developed. And it's like, welcome to WWE Monday Night Raw. Like it was at that level. And right away, Vince is like, I would tone down the energy. It sounds contrived. And I'm like, listen, I got Cole telling me to yell my balls off. I got this guy telling me to tone it down. Like there's no right answer, right? You're getting feedback from 2 different people and Kevin Dunn. And you're like, all right, just get through it. Do your best. After that show, I met with Vince. He gave 15 things I'd like to improve on. But again, you're doing very well. Okay. Episode 4, he didn't give any feedback. Episode 5, he didn't. We did a pay-per-view in there. But this was the point, Ken, to your point. Now he's not making as many comments. But when he is, he's letting me know that he's contemptuous. And I don't think anyone's ever done this, which has been so, to me, patronizing. I can't think of anything he could do that was worse. He would open up his key, as you know, while a broadcaster's talking with an earpiece or a headset. And when the producer opens, he can hear you. And I would make, let's say, a joke or a comment he didn't like. And he would literally just go, oh. And in my head, I'm like, I can't think of anything worse than someone literally groaning in my face. Like imagine a comedian delivering a joke. And you just go, you go, okay, I got it. You didn't like the joke. You didn't like the one. Like at one point, he said, I said, hell hath no fear like a woman scorned over Charlotte Flair. And he's like, lose the trite expressions. We don't need those kinds of cliches. Even I'd say like, kick out at 2. Don't say kick out at 2. And I'm like, but that's exactly what Michael Cole says. So Michael Cole, so he can say it, but I can't say it. And like you realize like there's nothing I can do here. So ultimately, week 6 he didn't say much. Now week 7 he said nothing. I remember texting my wife right after. I go, you know what? I think I can do this. Like, if he's not barking at me the whole time, if I can maintain some level of confidence, and confidence is a big part of it. Cole kept saying, delete your Twitter, delete your Instagram. Don't look at it. You know what I mean? It's not going to help you. And I'd go back there with Byron and just be like, oh my God, I just feel like I went through 12 rounds with Ali Frazier. He's like, yeah, you get through it. But then to Steven's point earlier, with ESPN, I knew it was coming. This time I did not know it was coming. I should have figured it out because normally Cole would always call me on Friday. We'd go over the show, what to expect, what to improve on. That last week on the Thursday, he was like, hey, I'm jammed up with a bunch of stuff. All good. I'll talk to you when I get here. And I realized after, I'm like, oh, they'd already hired somebody else. They already knew they were going to fire me. So why waste your time talking to me? And that's why Vince didn't say anything to me that final show. He knew I was going to be fired anyways. What was the point, So in retrospect, I was like, oh, I should have maybe realized it. But I flew home. I had to go right back to MLB Network. I still had a full-time job, obviously. And then my agent called me back. Goes, sorry, buddy, bad call to make, but you're out. And I was like, are you kidding me? It's been 7 weeks. Right. I did whatever they asked. I know I'm not doing a good job. I'm not delusional. I'm struggling. I need to improve a lot. but incrementally, I'm getting a little bit better, and I'm doing everything that they're telling me to do. Vince is telling me to talk less, do less play-by-play, more oomph. Like whatever he's telling me, I'm doing. It's not like I'm running rogue here. And Matt's like, I know. That's life. Cole's going to call you. And Cole said to me, it was very simple. He goes, we're at the whims of one man, right? It's like McDonald's. There's one guy running it. That's it. It made me think about, Kenny and Steven, the great scene in Casino when De Niro takes a bite of the muffin. And there's a disproportionate number of blueberries. And he goes back to the chef and goes, look at this. I want an equal number of blueberries in every muffin. And the chef looks at him bewildered and goes, do you have any idea how long that will take? And he goes, I don't care how long it's going to take. I want an equal amount of blueberries in every muffin. You're working with somebody in Vince McMahon who is type A, who is relentless, who wants things done a certain way. And if it's not done a certain way, you're out. I wish he had at least would have called me and said, hey, this call is why I'm firing you. Or this performance is the reason. I don't actually know the reason. All Cole said to me was, listen, you're out. We don't know why. He just wakes up one day and goes, he's done. Fire him. And that's it.
Right.
And Nick Khan called me, of course. Nick's the best. Nick goes, if it was up to me, I'd give you a 10-year deal. Like, I know how great you are. I know how hard this job is. Cole said to me, it's going to take you 6 months to a year to get comfortable with this job. At least a year before you're like, okay, I think I kind of get it. This is the hardest job you're ever going to have. And Cole goes, I know it because I came from you. Like I'm come from broadcast television. I'm an outsider like you. It's very, very hard. The WWE universe is very discerning. They're very tough on people who come from the outside. But you'll get there. You just need time. And Vince didn't give me that time. But I will respect him in this respect too. If I'm not doing a good job, might as well just give me the knockout punch, right? This is not courtesy class. If he thinks I'm harming the product, you don't have to give me 6 months. I think to me, if you're at any job, you should have at least 3 months. Unless you're truly incompetent or, being insubordinate, which I was not. I was obviously always on time, polite to very respectful. You give a guy 3 months after that, you go, it's not working out. But it's Vince's company. He can do what he wants. He wanted to fire me. He did. I still have the stories. As I said in the book, as I said in the chapter, which Ken read in 3 minutes, it was, I knew taking the job, it would be a fun chapter of my book. I just wish the chapter was a little longer.
Yeah, that was it's great stuff there. And by the way, Cinephile, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes, is available wherever you can get your books, whether it's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and any other place where you can buy your books, even Apple Books. It is available there. If you like ebooks or Kindle. How was that for a plug?
That's great work out of you, Ken. And by the way, people have asked me that. What about an audiobook? What about Kindle? I believe it's available for Kindle. I actually don't know. I'm not a Kindle guy. I still go to the library, for God's sakes. I like getting a hardcover book. And the audiobook, that sounds like a lot of work. As you know, the book is interviews with a lot of these different actors. So who am I going to get to be the voice of Billy Bob Thornton? Who am I going to get to be the voice of Mahershala Ali? I can't possibly do all these different voices. But if they want me to do an audiobook and it will help sell books, I'm happy to do it.
If you need me to imitate some of these actors, I would be very happy.
I can see here on the screen, we do see ebook. Does that mean it's a Kindle? Is that true? I don't know what that is.
Yeah,
I believe so. This is from barnesandnoble.com.
Yeah, so it's an ebook. So yeah, it is available on Apple Books as well. So
okay, great.
You can get it there too. So
that means it's available. Does that mean Kindle as well? Is that the same thing or no?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Well done, boys. You're teaching me something about my book. I appreciate it.
Let's talk a little bit about movies, which is why I got you. When I saw the book Cinephile, I said, I got to get Adnan. I know this is going to be great. So the fact is, this is a whole bunch of, as you mentioned, interviews with actors. What is it about movies that basically has, and I know that from your socials, is that you will mention movies, you'll review movies. How many movies do you basically see a week, Adnan?
It's a great question. It fluctuates, Kenny. As I like to call it, in my hotbed of Oscar season, it can be like 4 movies a week because then I get the screeners, as you know, which is a game changer, right? Kids go to school. I can knock in an afternoon matinee at home with I still have a DVD player. I have a Blu-ray player. Now they send you on your phone or on the computer, so I get the links as well. I can watch on my computer. I can screen mirror it. But then there's times I have cold stretches as well. Like, for the summer, I don't watch nearly as many movies. This month, for example, I've only seen 2 movies at the theater. I took one of my kids to go see The Naked Gun. The original is one of my favorites, of course. Leslie Nielsen's unbelievable. The sequel is pretty good. And then I just saw Highest to Lowest, the Denzel Washington Spike Lee movie, which was a great reunion to have both those guys. By the way, that's streaming on Apple Plus this Friday. It was only in theaters for 4 weeks, only playing in a few theaters. But I said, no, I love Denzel. I love Spike Lee. I want to see it in the theater. So it does vary. But I think if you average it over the course of the year, some weeks the quiet week is 1 or 2. The heavier week is 3 or 4. So we're probably averaging about 3 movies a week.
Fantastic. What was I haven't read the book, but I'm going to. I'm going to get the ebook, by the way, on Apple Books. But the fact is that you are getting these actors to speak with you. What is it like to get them? I mean, with the podcast, we've got you on, and you're very open. We appreciate that. Thank you so much for being vulnerable about the ESPN firing, and about your WWE experience. But what is it like to get these actors to come on who are used to putting up a guard and pretending to be someone else, to actually be themselves with you?
Yeah, the thing is, a lot of these guys are pros, right? They know the way junkets work, and they realize the better job they do, the better chance the movie will succeed, right? If you have one express purpose to do these interviews, which is to sell your movie, as I'm selling my book. So the better job you do, the better chance you'll have of people wanting to buy the book or buy the movie, or whatever it is that you're promoting. So I think A, they're invested. B, again, having ESPN helped all those interviews. Miles Teller's a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan, as am I. So we're just happy to find some commonalities. We start talking Eagles, and we're talking about Vi Sikahima and random Eagles from the past, Mike Mamula, and connecting on those guys. And he's talking about a big baseball guy is, and Darren Dalton is one of his favorite Phillies. And it was just, when these guys are sports guys, it's a piece of cake. Billy Bob Thornton, I want to talk to him about Sling Blade. He wants to talk to him about the St. Louis Cardinals and Chris Carpenter. That's the different worlds we're coming from. I'm like, no, but let's talk more. I got fried chicken and tater. And he's just like, no, let's talk about Matt Holliday. And I don't want to talk about Matt Holliday. I want to talk about movies right now. So I think that always helps when these guys are sports guys. One of my favorite guys, he wrote the blurb on the cover, J.K. Simmons. He's an unbelievable, huge Detroit Tigers fan and a huge Buckeyes fan. And it's in his contract, J.K. Simmons, wherever he is, he gets to watch Tigers games on set and Ohio State Buckeyes games. So he's a legit fan. So I think he's talking to me knowing I've got something to promote. I know who this guy is. Christopher Guest is one of the great comedic minds of all time, Ken. I met him, and I'm telling him how great this Spinal Tap is, and he knows who I am. I watch you on Baseball Tonight all the time. I go, oh my, I can't believe Christopher Guest even knows who I am. And I'm going to tell him, how funny all of his movies are, and obviously who doesn't love Best in Show and
Come on,
Mighty Win? It's brilliant stuff. So I think I've been fortunate. When you have a visible job, they at least have some idea who you are. If they don't know who you are, that's fine too. By the course of the interview, you can impress them. Will or not, I don't think necessarily knew who I was, but very quickly, I'm Canadian. I'm also from Toronto. Now we start talking Leafs, Blue Jays, etc. Norm Macdonald is one of my favorites. He's a great guy, fellow Canadian. So funny. Obviously, we miss him deeply. Richard Lewis, I'm a huge fan of. He was really funny and engaging. So I was fortunate, man. I think, honestly, 90% of interviews, and you guys can speak to this, whoever you're speaking to, 90% is kind of on them. If they come in, as you said, like me, being vulnerable, open, willing to play ball, you're going to have a great interview. If they're guarded, if they're having an off day, it's not going to work out. Only one interview I never published, 336 episodes of Cinephile. Almost every episode had a guest. Keith David, who's an actor I love. He was in Requiem for a Dream. He was in Platoon. For some reason, Kenny, I just think he was having a bad day. I don't know what it was, but every question I asked him, he was terse. This is on the phone, so he can't see me. It's pre-Zoom. He was terse. He just wasn't giving me much. And by the end, I'm looking at the producer, we're not going to run this. And at the end, he was polite. It was so weird. Keith, oh, thanks so much. This was great. I'm like, this could not have gone worse. So that's 1 out of 335. Normally, every single time they come to play ball, and I laugh because as soon as the interview is over, they're gone. They can turn it on and turn it off. Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond was promoting an independent movie. She was great. Name checked me. Hi, Adnan. Great to see you. Love your podcast. The second interview is over. Thanks so much, Patricia. Normally you get 10 seconds. Like Tim Roth over Zoom. I'm like, hey, Tim, thanks so much. Again, huge fan. We'll always have Reservoir Dogs. The Warzone's a great film you direct. Okay, thanks so much, buddy. All the best. Take care. Appreciate it. Thanks. So it can be that direct, but I'm like, I don't care. As long as the interview is good, the interview is good. And like I said, I took 13 of the best interviews and put it in the book. Hopefully people will enjoy reading it, reliving it as much as I enjoyed doing it.
What would be, this is like asking, this is really an open-ended question, but what would you say best baseball movie ever?
So, I mean, I think I'd have to go, it's a toss-up, and I'm not going to hedge it. I'll give you an answer. So the answer is 8 Men Out. The number 2 is Field of Dreams, and I'll explain the most. So 8 Men Out, I think, has the most baseball in it. So my thing with Field of Dreams, as much as I love it, and it's an all-time great, it's the better movie, but it's about fathers and sons. It's about redemption. It's about other things beyond baseball. And oftentimes great sports movies are like that. Raging Bull, I think, is the greatest sports movie ever. There's only 12 minutes of boxing in the movie. Right? It's not thought of as a conventional sports film, but it's about the self-destructiveness of Jake LaMotta, and obviously Scorsese's direction is just so incredible and magical, and De Niro's performance, literally influenced a generation of actors. So in Field of Dreams, I think it's the better movie. It's a more quotable movie. James Earl Jones' speech about baseball. I've been to Field of Dreams. I felt the magic of being there, as corny as that sounds. But even though it actually has baseball in it, like David Strathairn is one of my favorite actors. He's great as Eddie Seacott. John Cusack actually looks like he can play third base. Buck Weaver. We all know Charlie Sheen can play right field. Half Felch, she's swinging the ball in there. So those guys can all play baseball. There's a legit linear narrative of that 1919 World Series games 1 through 9. So I love it because it's got actual baseball in it, strategizing, etc. But it also has this great story about being a morality play and about these guys throwing the World Series and being very sympathetic towards the players and what a villainous guy Charles Comiskey was, at least by that version that John Sayles told. And John Sayles is a great independent filmmaker for years. He's been a great writer and director. So I think 8 Men Out, obviously a really powerful. I love the ending. It's so poignant, so sad when Shoeless Joe Jackson's looking up. By the way, as you guys know, Shoeless Joe now going to be on the ballot thanks to what Rob Manfred's done with him and Pete Rose. So I hope, first thing I thought was 8 Men Out. I hope Shoeless Joe gets in. And I think that and Field of Dreams are my 2 favorites. But listen, if you want a fun one, I'll throw in Major League as well. I mean, that's probably the most rewatchable. That's a great, funny movie, no doubt about it.
Absolutely. How about best hockey movie?
Hockey, I'm gonna annoy you. I'm gonna go to the movie that no one's heard of. It's called The Rocket. It's a great French-Canadian movie. It's made in Montreal. It's about Rocket Richard.
Right.
And it's a great film. I don't know how many people have seen it, but I thought it was really well done. Obviously Slapshot's the more conventional answer, probably the right answer. I love Paul Newman. George Roy Hill's great. I told you earlier, Pacino's my favorite actor. They were thinking about Pacino for Slapshot until he told them he couldn't skate. Al, we can't make the movie. He's from the Bronx. He can't skate. He can't do this movie. But Newman is so funny. Obviously, the Hanson brothers are so good. But I really do love both those movies. I think are really good. The Rocket's really good because it just tells that time and place. Really well done. But Slapshot's a pretty iconic movie. There's no doubt about it.
What did you think about Goon?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned it. Let's say the Jay Baruchel movie was really good too, because Jay's a legit huge hockey fan as well, huge Habs fan. I never met Jay. I met Seth Rogen years ago, and I mentioned Jay Baruchel to him because of how much I love This Is the End. And Rogen said to me, "Yeah, because that movie is just us." And then he laughed. He goes, "Baruchel's going to my place tomorrow night. Like he's flying in from Montreal to LA. They're going to hang out." So that movie is true verisimilitude. That's like a documentary of how those guys all hang out together. And I said, Jay's that big a fan. He goes, dude, he insisted on wearing a Montreal Canadiens hat in the movie. He is a diehard Habs fan. And Goon 1 is good. Even the sequel was good. I love the Ev Schreiber. He was perfectly cast.
Great. Absolutely.
Goon was a great hockey movie. I agree.
What's funny is that I didn't know about it. And for some reason, it's 3:00 in the morning. I'm saying it's on DirecTV. I needed to go to bed. It was on Showtime. I said, is there a hockey movie? And Sean William Scott is in this.
Yeah,
I gotta see this. I didn't know. And and you mentioned Lee Schreiber is the Goon, and I'm like, I gotta watch this. And I'm like, oh my! I didn't go to bed until 5:30 in the morning, but I was so enthralled. It was a fantastic movie and well done, and didn't get enough recognition, unfortunately, because it was just one of those movies that snuck under the radar. But if you're a hockey fan, you really need to see that movie. Absolutely fun.
I forgot Sean William Scott's in Stifler. That's great. What a reference. I like it.
I thought you'd like that. How about football movie?
I really love Any Given Sunday. I know it's a little bit over the top, but God, that Pacino inch by inch speech is incredible. I love Oliver Stone's visceral direction. I think Jamie Foxx is fantastic. The way he's so brash as a quarterback. That whole sequence, him and Pacino are arguing, and Oliver Stone's mixing in the scenes from I think from Ben-Hur. That's that whole chariot sequence is unbelievable. Yep. Cameron Diaz, James Woods is really funny in the movie. Obviously, Lawrence Taylor. I thought it had a real pizzazz to it in action. Again, that Pacino speech is one for the ages. Every movie like that has to have a great speech. I also love Friday Night Lights. I will say that Billy Bob Thornton was so good in that movie.
Very good.
Playing that very down-hard catch, Gary Gaines. Those are the two that stand out for me.
And finally, I have to go basketball.
Well, Hoop Dreams is the best one. I know it's a documentary, but it's an unbelievable movie. I mean, God, Hoop Dreams telling the story of Arthur H. and William Gates, two guys in Chicago trying to make it. Nobody carried the torch for that movie quite like Siskel and Ebert. Both those guys praised that film. And I remember, Letterman at the Oscars was talking about what a joke it was that all these movies get nominated. How did Hoop Dreams not even get nominated for Best Documentary? But I remember talking to Steve James about it, the great director of the movie, and he said it ended up actually helping the fact that it didn't get nominated. He goes, in today's world, if you win Best Documentary, that obviously does help. The movie gets released places and you get more of a boost. Because back then, unless you won the Best Documentary award, you didn't necessarily see a big boost. So he goes, by being snubbed, we ended up being the beneficiaries because everyone's like, have you seen this movie? This is insane how they get nominated. So I've still seen Hoop Dreams after it was played years ago, back in '94. I think it's a beautiful film. It shows the greatness of basketball. But I like He Got Game. I like White Man Can't Jump. Those are fun movies as well. But I really love Hoop Dreams.
What'd you think about Fast Break?
I wasn't as crazy about it, to be honest with you. I just think, it didn't necessarily work for me. Maybe I'm alone on that. But I find some of these movies they're trying too hard. Like people are asking me Happy Gilmore 2, and I'm going, I'm just not going to bother. Like life's too short.
I'm with you on that. Yeah. Yeah.
When the sequel's 30 years later, it's a cash grab, and that's fine. I'm not blaming Adam Sandler. You go get yours, but there's no way this is going to be worth my time.
I'm refusing. I am boycotting that movie. But even though my favorite talk show host Dan Patrick is in it, I am not watching that movie. Yeah.
Right, because at best case, Ken, you're going to go, well, it was okay, or wasn't as bad as I thought. If that's how low the bar, and more than likely you're going to go, that movie was atrocious. So that's not worth it. We have better things to do with our time.
Exactly, especially when it's on. Hey, what's great about it? It's on Netflix. We've already paid our money for Netflix. They're not. You don't feel bad when you go into a movie theater. I just paid $12 for that movie. I am not happy. It's on Netflix. You can just say I can ignore it. So
100%. Yeah,
Steve, you got something?
Yeah, a couple of things. Adnan Virk is joining us to give us his time to do an interview tonight. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Of course. I got about 5 minutes before I have to bounce, but go ahead, Steve. Whatever you got.
No problem. 5 minutes. What did you think of the F1 this year?
The movie or racing?
Yes, the movie. Yes.
Not crazy about it, and it got good reviews, so I got sucked into it as always. The problem with these movies, Steven, is they're just so formulaic. Veteran guy, young guy's cocky, he's brash, they're going to fight, and there's a love interest, they're going to sleep together, there's a big climactic race. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's nothing that right about it either. And I read too many blurbs and Rotten Tomatoes go, oh, it's a fun movie, it's exciting. I go, it's kind of the same old thing. So it's not a bad movie. I don't think it's a great movie, though. Even the action sequences, they're cut the exact way that I know they're going to cut it. It's over the shoulder, then it's that point of view shot of the driver, then it goes to this angle and this angle. Like everything about it was so cookie cutter. Joseph Kosinski's the director. He did Top Gun Maverick, which I wasn't crazy about either. So I know, like Brad Pitt's a good looking guy. He looks like he's having a good time. But I watch the movies, I get kind of depressed because I go, Brad Pitt's such a good director. Javier Bardem is such a good director. These guys are just slumming, taking a paycheck. I guess it's okay. These guys got 8 kids and lives to worry about. But I was disappointed by it, I'll be honest.
And finally, for those who are out there, aspiring, people wanting to get into the industry in sports in any shape or form, media, working with the teams, et cetera, et cetera. What is your best advice based on, from your, trials and tribulations and, and how you started to where you are now? What is the best advice you can give to young people, especially of, Asian Americans who are still, trying to find their footings in the industry? Because if you look at ESPN, I can only see Zubin Mehenti, which I'm sure you're very familiar with.
Love him.
And,
Kevin Nagandi and
guy that I can see that we can identify as somebody who's from an Asian American side.
No, it's no question. It's different for us, right? There's no doubt about it. We have not had the road paved for us. There's not been other guys, for years who kind of broke the mold. So that's why it's so important to have the Kevin Nagandis, the Anish Shroffs, the Adam Amins.
Oh, I forgot Kevin Nagandi.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Of course. The Mike Yams, Steven Nelson is a dear friend. Like these guys have been unbelievable and are so proud of their roots. So I'm grateful all those guys are in the business, but we all rally for each other. We're all on, different group texts and stuff, and always giving each other props. I think you have to try to always be aggressive, believe in yourself. Don't take no for an answer. I mentioned the fact I got turned down by 2 agents. I got turned down for 7, 8 on-air jobs. Most people that happens to. Lauren Shahadi's as talented as it gets. She got turned down for like 20 jobs. It just happens. So have thick skin, be resilient, listen to people, take their advice. Remember people's names. It's important. Chris Berman said years ago, there's a fine line between being pushy and being a pain in the ass. And only you know that fine line. So when I was trying to get the job at ESPN, I knew to email Lori Orlando a little bit, but don't be too much. Don't be too aggressive. They know you want the job. Just try to be warm and friendly and engaging about it, and be respectful. Treat people with class. The hardest part of the journey is the first job. That's it. The hardest thing is always going to be that first job. Because everyone's going to say to you, "Why should I hire you? I'd rather get somebody with experience." But how can I get experience unless someone gives me a job? So that's the hardest part. You're 22, 23, 24. It was 2 years after graduation before I got a job on air. Those 2 years felt like 20. I graduated at 22. I got my first on air show at 24. I felt like I was 40. I thought I was so far beyond everybody else was doing it. So I'm so behind. I can't believe I'm 24. I'm now getting my first on air job. What am I going to do? And now I'm 47. Been doing it 23 years, and it couldn't have worked out better. So stay the course. Believe in yourself. Be resilient. Remember people's names. Treat people with class. All the things that mom and dad teach you to do. Those write thank you notes. Thank people afterwards. Like Ken Fang just did. Sent me a thank you text in the middle of the interview. Be gracious. Those are all good things.
He is Adnan Virk. Thank you very much for acknowledging that. He is the host of MLB Tonight on MLB Network, also NHL Tonight on NHL Network, also the great host of the Cinephile podcast, and also the Cinephile book, which is out on any place where you can get books, whether it's Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It is an ebook, which Adnan did not know about tonight, but he now knows that you can get it on Apple books and also Kindle. And if he does need someone to do the audiobook, I am available to read as part of any that you need. So right. I'm there for you. And thank you so much. We really appreciate the hour.
I can't wait. Ken Fang is J.K. Simmons, Miles Teller, Billy Bob, Margot Robbie. You'll do all the different voices of all the actors. Hey, last thought on a somewhat serious note. Years ago, when Steven Nelson and I were together at MLB Network, he said, listen, May is Asian Excellence Month, Asian Heritage Month, AAPI, as we all know. And he goes, me and Adnan need to host the show together. And a few people kind of snickered and goes, Adnan? They go, what? And he goes, he's Asian. And for years, people think Asian, they think East Asian. They think of Chinese, Japanese, Korean, etc. And so props to the great Steven Nelson. He goes, no, he's of Pakistani descent. His parents are from Pakistan. Pakistan's in Asia. He's an Asian American. When he goes to a survey and it says Black, Latino, Asian, he circles Asian. That's what he is. So I'm always grateful to Steven. We did a great show, I thought, AAPI Heritage Month, in which we talked to Farhan Zaidi, who was then with the San Francisco Giants. We talked to Dave Roberts, who's half Japanese. Like, it was great to be able to talk to people in the game who have an Asian ancestry. And if we can't pull for each other, really, there's no point in doing this at all. So thank you both for giving me a little bit of support. I'm happy to give you some support, and I can't wait to come back again.
Yeah, definitely have you back, Adnan. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your holiday weekend, and we will have you back. And maybe during Oscar season, we will talk about Best Picture and Best Actor. We'll talk all about that when we have you back.
It's a date. I'll hold you to it. Ken, Steven, thank you so much, guys. This was a blast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adnan.
Thank you, Adnan.
Take care, guys.
Adnan Virk of MLB Network, and Soleil says hi. We appreciate that. But before we go, Steven, is there? Let's see if we can
squeeze in a few things. Yes.
Yeah, let's brush on a few things. What are some of the? What do you want to? I do want to talk a little bit about this past weekend in college football, but also preview the week in NFL, which is coming up this Thursday. Also, shout out to Naomi Osaka, who came out and did very well in the U.S. Open. And also Coco Gauff, who mentioned that she had some mental health issues. She had a panic attack on the court during her match this week. So wanted to talk quickly about that before we let you go. But thank you to all the 162 people who watched the interview with Adnan Virk. We really appreciate that. It was something I just kind of jokingly said, hey, do you want to come on? And he goes, yeah, let's do it. And then we started we started DMing each other. I said, well, we could do it next week. He goes, no, I'll come on this Sunday. What are you doing? Let's do it. I'm like, okay. So we thank him very much for doing this and for coming on with us. And you can see it was a great hour, Steven. It was fantastic.
Yes. And that was high energy and very well spoken as well.
And we appreciate him being so open about his firing at ESPN and what happened at WWE. A lot of people would say, no, I don't want to talk about it, but he was willing to talk about it. So we appreciate that.
All right, let's start off with college football, which began officially yesterday. Texas, Ohio State, very, I would say, anticlimactic game. Defense dominating, two quarterbacks who've never played, who've never started or never thrown much games in the past. And Justin Sane and Arch Manning. Arch Manning was, pretty much because of his last name, everybody hyped him up. He looked pretty blah for the lack of better terms.
Mm-hmm.
He was harassed. He looked, he was not. I don't think he really had any composure in his very first start.
Mm-hmm.
He was throwing a lot of the sidearms that was like hitting the ground. Not many throws were very catchable. Of course, he was harassed by Ohio State's defense. Now Matt Patricia, being the DC there, did a great job. It's funny. People were anointing him as the Heisman Trophy winner already. I know Paul Feinbaum was just drooling all over him. All season, all off season, and then yesterday. But certainly, I think the polls at this time of the year are very, very useless. It's hard to, anoint somebody number one at this point, and then expect that team to be as good as they are, or at least back up the hype. So I think Texas getting humbled was a somewhat of a wake up call, perhaps. Unfortunately, I don't think this is the last time Texas is going to suffer another loss. Maybe there might be another one or two of them, unfortunately, in a very deep, tough SEC. But I think at this point, Arch Manning's hype train, I wouldn't say derailed, but I think we need to kind of put a brakes on him winning the Heisman and going number one overall in 2026. Although I think some people joke that because your Browns, Andrew Berry, and Jimmy Haslam was at the attendance, he decided to suck so that nobody would draft or something like that. But yeah, that's my biggest takeaway from the week one. What is your big takeaway?
Well, of course, I did watch that game. I did keep a close eye on it because I wanted to see Fox's coverage of it. I do think that what was interesting is that Gus Johnson anointed Steve Sarkisian as an offensive genius. But when you have a quarterback who just isn't ready, you can be the best offensive genius, and if your quarterback doesn't get the job done, you're going to look pretty bad. So I'll agree that Manning was overhyped. But I'm also going to say that Arch Manning probably hasn't seen a defense like this. It confused him. Matt Patricia, of course, part of the Bill Belichick coaching tree. He has had success with the Patriots. Of course, you can talk about what he did with the Detroit Lions until you're blue in the face about how horrible he was there. But as a coordinator with the Patriots, he did pretty well in trying to confuse a quarterback. And he did that quite well. I mean, he had some schemes in there. Arch Manning, I mean, his wins came against mostly scrub teams, Stephen. And I think we'll have to. And Arch Manning said the right things after the game. He said he just wasn't. He sarcastically said, "I guess I'm not number one. I'm not a number one draft pick." He was joking about that. But I got to say that there's a lot of things that he's not ready for this. He's not ready yet. Maybe as he goes along, he'll learn from this. But right now, that defense, a good defense is going to. Good defenses are. It doesn't matter what type of. You could be Dan Marino, you could be Tom Brady. If there's a good defense out there that's going to confuse you, it will confuse you, and that's exactly what happened. He was not ready, and I have to say that there were some times at the end of the game. Yes, he had some good throws out there, but when it came clutch time, off Ohio State's defense snuffed them out on 3rd and short, 4th and short, stopped them on the goal line a couple of times, and that was really the game. It wasn't really a 14-7. I know it looks close on the scoreboard, but when Ohio State went up 14-0, Stephen, I'm sure Steve Sarkisian felt it was like 40-0, the way that Arch Manning was playing.
Yeah, the game was over pretty much by then.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, at one point, I saw more of his commercials than his completions.
That's what everyone was saying. Everyone was saying that yesterday on social media.
Right, Warby Parker, and then whatever. What else was that?
Exactly.
There was another. Oh, Verori, like sports. That's the one that Paul Skeen's girlfriend, Olivia
Dunn.
Olivia Dunn was in it too. That's the one that he was in. Yeah, those were 2 commercials, 2 completions, same time. We kind of find it interesting there. Quick notes about the other game: Alabama, Florida State. My goodness, Florida State 2-10 last year. They hosted at Alabama, And Alabama looked like that's the team that's going to finish like 2 or 3 wins this year under Kalen DeBoer. My God, it's just like no one seems to have any sort of respect towards Alabama anymore after Saban left. I know FSU quarterback Thomas Castellanos was talking trash all off season, and he backed it up. It was that bad for Alabama, and I don't think that they're going to buy out his contract just yet, but I know the pitchforks are out in full force down in Tuscaloosa, maybe trying to lure Nick Saban back in it. But I tell you what, Alabama, Texas, both losing, not a good look for the SEC right now. Alabama, I think might be in for a real shocking season, in my opinion, Ken.
Yeah, I didn't see that game, but I did see the highlights. Alabama looked like a team that was it's definitely not your father's Alabama team when Nick Saban was there, Stephen.
Even Red Bryan was coaching too.
Exactly. So I got to say that Alabama has to, Kalen DeBoer's got to do a lot of soul searching right now, because this is the fans in Alabama aren't going to stand for this. He's got to turn this around real quick. But I got to say, one coach that seems to be turning around real quick, LSU, which almost tried to make an 0-3 start for the SEC yesterday, but they managed to defeat Clemson last night. Clemson, I thought, was going to win this game, to be honest with you. They're playing at home, but Brian Kelly, who normally finds a way to lose big games, had a good defense this time around, and they stepped up. This is a game I did watch. I got to say, impressed with the way Brian Kelly's defense stepped up late in the game to hold off Clemson, which is trying to go for a tying score late in the game, but they managed to win this one. So I got to say, they saved the SEC's bacon last night, and finally I managed to stay up a little bit. Boy, what a fall for UCLA, Stephen, in the Big Ten. This is a program that once was a very proud program. It had a lot of great players going back and forth over its history, losing majorly, like I think it was 43-10 last night to Utah. Former Pac-10 rivals, of course, Utah now in the Big 12 and UCLA in the Big 10. I know the Big Ten isn't going to say this and say, boy, we messed up by taking UCLA and not Utah. But I got to say that UCLA's they've got to figure a way this out right now, because the Los Angeles college football teams, they were hoping that to have better fortunes. But right now, both of those teams, USC and UCLA, they've got to turn the things around, because if you're going to have teams in major markets like the Big Ten is, Stephen, they've got to. They
better be good. Yeah,
they got to
really got to be good.
You can't have that, because there's a reason why you expanded out into 14 teams. And if you're not going to have good teams in Los Angeles, why did you even expand there? Why did you even bring them in?
Exactly. All right, let's end on this note. Michael Parsons' trade sent shockwaves throughout the NFL.
Oh, yes.
Right. I want to send, first of all, I want to say a big shout out and a super thank you to RJ Ochoa, who is the managing editor and the host for Blogging the Boys on the SB Nation. We had him on Monday to talk about the potential trade and the fallout. At that time, we didn't think it was going to happen, but it was Thursday, it happened. And it was just completely shocking trade. I will say this, as a Bears fan, it sucks that now that the Bears will have to deal with Parsons for the next 4 years. Mm-hmm. It has drawn comparison to, Khalil Mack trade, which happened about 7 years ago to this date, I believe, just before the start of the regular season, of course, at this time. The Packers are all in right now. They're just basically hoping that, Jordan Love, hasn't taken that huge step since that, ironically, demolishing Dallas in the playoffs more than year and a half ago, which he parlayed that into a big contract. So now the pressure's on Green Bay because you're paying Jordan Love $50 million plus close, and then now you're also paying Michael Parsons $50 million close to that deal. So, the pressure's on Green Bay to get it done right this year, and then maybe hopefully that Jordan Love takes that next step. The Bears only got one good season out of Khalil Mack because, after the division win in 2018, Mitchell Trubisky and Matt Nagy turned out to be two frauds, and they just couldn't exist and elevate one another, unfortunately. So, as for the Dallas, Ken, I gotta say, Jerry Jones's press conference was just cringeworthy, calling him Michael multiple times. I don't want to say this thing slightly. It seems like this man is dealing with the early sets of dementia every single time when he speaks, because he was blabbering. And one of the first questions I think he was asked, he was talking for like 10, 11 minutes straight with no end in sight. Again, calling Micah Parsons Michael 5 or 6 times throughout the press conference was also embarrassing. It's just that the pettiness of this man really, sent Parsons trade that I don't think that neither one of us expected this to happen, because I know with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, they got it done eventually, even though it took like a week before the season or just several days before the season to get it done. But man, I feel bad for Dallas sports fans. They saw Luka Doncic gets traded in February, which was a shocker itself, and now you see Michael Parsons.
Yeah, I last week, Stephen, I predicted that a week ago. I said tonight.
Yeah, I remember now.
I said that we would find out they would sign. Well, that I couldn't be more wrong. But again, this is coming out, interestingly enough, as people were talking about the Netflix documentary on Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, how he gave himself credit for the Herschel Walker trade, which was more Jimmy Johnson than anything else. Everybody knows that. But I have to say that he's trying to make a splash like Jimmy Johnson did with this Micah Parsons trade. I'm not going to diagnose Jerry Jones with dementia or anything like that. That's not fair. But I will say this. His rambling press conference didn't help him. He again, that one instance where he answered the question for 11 minutes without taking a break. And then, of course, mentioning Michael, saying Michael instead of Micah. It was a bizarre press conference. Let's just put it that way. And also saying that we're better now without Micah than with him. I find that very hard to believe. That defense is going to be a sieve without an edge rusher. It's going to be very difficult right now. And Dak Prescott has an offensive line that's like a sieve itself. There's a lot of holes in that team, and I'd be shocked if they win 6 games this season. That's how bad they are right now. Without Micah Parsons, who is a difference of maybe 3 or 4 wins on defense. Now you've lost him. You have a guy who's supposedly going to help you in the run.
Kenny Clark, absolutely.
I don't see that happening. So,
no, I don't.
when you have a division with the Philadelphia Eagles, which all of a sudden find themselves without having to face Micah Parsons twice, and a Washington Commanders team, which is saying, hey, we just got an open to finish second place and get a wild card spot after the Philadelphia Eagles, if the Eagles on paper do what we think they're going to do. Dallas, we thought if Micah Parsons finishes and stays with the Cowboys, here's a chance for the Cowboys to get maybe a second wild card team out of the NFC East. That's likely not going to happen now. I mean, you've got the Giants who look absolutely horrible. So I'm going to have to say, Stephen, that I don't think that the Cowboys made themselves better at all. I think they made themselves a whole lot worse. And Jerry Jones, here's a guy, I know he wants to cement his legacy. He's still living off those 3 Super Bowls that happened in the 1990s. But again, Who was the architect of that? It was Jimmy Johnson. It was not him. And I know that documentary about that's on Netflix basically gives himself all the credit that you want. You can do as much revisionist history as you want, Stephen, but we all know what happened. We all know the situation. And Jerry Jones just isn't an architect. He is a good businessman for buying the Cowboys and for turning them around and for making them as much as valued as they are, probably over $1 billion if he ever sold it. But I'm telling you, Stephen, he's not a football man like Jimmy Johnson is, and he never will be. And
this trade 100% cemented that for.
Oh yeah, and the fact is that we all know he's going to hand this to Stephen, his son. It's going to stay in the Joneses family. That's probably going to be the likelihood.
Succession, yes.
Yeah. And whether Stephen Jones was the one that everyone speculates was the one that said trade Micah, I don't know if that's the truth or not. But whatever happens right now, this is on Jerry Jones, and here's a guy that right now the Cowboys are spinning their wheels, and they're going to continue to spin their wheels until they get a football man as general manager. And Jerry Jones, of course, is not going to fire himself, but maybe Stephen Jones will have to do that when he takes over, whenever that's going to be.
Well, Ken, on that note, we'll put a bow on this show. A great conversation. As always, Adnan really helped us, steal the show tonight with his interview, obviously talking about his career and then also the movies as well. Really want to thank you for help securing the interview with Adnan based on your, knowledge and experience, obviously knowing him from your time with the awful announcing and everything. So I want to, tip my hat to you for securing Adnan. Turned out to be a wonderful interview, and look forward to having Adnan again down the road as well. And hopefully, maybe you can help us, get another guest.
We will actually. We actually will next month, Stephen. Actually, the author of the book Summerall and Madden, Rich Podolowski, who also worked at CBS. He also wrote the book on the NFL Today, of which the NFL Today documentary at CBS was based. He will be joining us in a couple of weeks.
Nice.
Talking about the book. I'll get the books forwarded to you, by the way.
Thank you.
Sent to you as a copy so you can read it as well. It's very fast. It's going to be fascinating. It's a book upcoming about the partnership about Pat Summerall and John Madden. He'll join us for about 30 minutes sometime next month. We're arranging it with his publicist. But
nice.
Well, looking forward to talking about it. It'll be perfect too, because we'll be in the midst of football season, and we'll talk with Rich about the partnership of John Madden and Pat Summerall. And of course, we all know about how great they were as a partnership and as a team on CBS and Fox from the 1980s all the way to about 2002. Well, we look forward to hearing from Rich Podolowski, who wrote the book and is writing. The book will be published soon, but I'll get you a copy and we'll talk.
Thank you.
So we'll look forward to that.
Thank you. I'm going to also reach out to Adam Virk from the NFL Network, who I did a podcast several years ago when we were doing regular podcasting rather than live streaming. So I'll reach out to Adam. He hopefully will join us sometime in September. I don't know if he's available on Sundays during the NFL season, but I'll try and do my best to accommodate his schedule. So it might be just me and Adam, but I'll ask and see if he can join us on the Sunday nights during football season whenever he is convenient. If not, then we'll do it another time with me and him doing solo at some point sometime in September as well, which, by the way, starts tomorrow, which is Labor Day. Of course, it's crazy, how time flies. But Ken, thanks for your time as always. Again, thank you for securing the Adnan Virk interview for tonight. And thank you very much for 166 people who stuck around and watched the whole interview, and also our takes on college football and Micah Parsons' trade as well. We look forward to seeing you next time. By the way, I'm on vacation starting next Sunday out on the West Coast. So I'll keep you updated on if I'm available, and maybe we'll also post on, when we can do our next live stream as well. So keep following us on our YouTube channel as well. If you want to go back and watch the interview with Adnan, as well as the past shows as well. Ken, thanks for your time. Have a wonderful Labor Day weekend tomorrow. And I hope everybody will have a great and safe Labor Day Monday as well. Please take care, and we'll see you next time on the Double 18 podcast live stream. Have a great evening. Take care, everybody.
You're welcome, and thank you very much. Have a great week in sport, and enjoy your NFL Week 1, which starts Thursday. So we'll look forward to talking about that when Steven is available. Have a great night, everyone.